Hey, what's up guys, Walrus here, and today I've got some gameplay, but, that is just to entertain you guys while I talk about a topic that is pretty much all over Battlefield, all over forums, whether they are official, whether they're, from a third-party website. You hear this all the time, the M16 is overpowered. And I kind of wanted to make a video today that focused on that because I kind of, I use it a shitload. A metric shitload. And a lot of people think that you can't really use the M16 and do well and still be a good player. That the M16 disqualifies you from some sort of, reputable standpoint in the community. And I would have to disagree. I think that what is with the M16 is something that DICE has had a problem with in the whole span of Battlefield 3, and that is balance. Now, the M16 is not necessarily overpowered because it is too good. It is overpowered in many situations because of its ability to do well in every range. Two equally skilled players with an M16 and then the other one has an AEK, it's going to take a higher skill at close range for the AEK to win because it has a higher spread. Although it does have a lower time to kill, it is going to be easier for the M16 user because it's easier to control, all this kind of stuff. It has many variables that are favorable for it. I mean, you can look at reload speed as one of the most simple things that makes the M16 such a desirable weapon to use. That's one of the reasons I like the M16 so much, is because of how good the reload speed is. The reload speed for the M16, if you have no bullets left, if you shoot every bullet, you don't have a bullet in the chamber. When you reload, it is still a faster reload than if the than if the AEK hasn't been mag dumped. All right, so you could shoot, one person, have 20 bullets in your AEK, and still reload slower than a person that completely just mag dumped you with an M16. And what this creates is something that is very, very good for close ranges, because what normally kills you in close range, you got to think about this, okay? It's the reload. It's not necessarily that you picked a corner you shouldn't have. It's not a suppression, though. Suppression does get you killed a lot. It is the fact that you have to reload, and when you get caught in a reload, it's basically saying, hey, shoot at me, I cannot return fire, and that's one of the reasons I like the M16 so much. Another reason that I really like the M16 is its high fire rate. Now, of course, it's not as high as the FAMAS or the AEK, but because of that, it's also easier to control. But because it's so easy to control and it has a high fire rate, mixed with the standard AR damage of 25 at minimum range, and it drops off the same as all the other ones except for a couple, is it creates a lethality of a weapon that, when matched with its ability to be controlled, its low spread, and its overall good variables, just allows it to be used in such a way that other weapons can't be used. And let's talk about an example. Talah Market is a perfect example. This is what the gameplay is on, is Talah Market Rush. You see me shooting guys at long range. You see me shooting guys here in medium range. You see me in short range. And it's all very successful. It's a very dynamic weapon. But the thing is while a dynamic weapon should be good at everything, that's what a dynamic weapon is something that's, it can be used in multiple ranges. It can't be the best at what it does, and I think this is probably the best assault rifle in the game for medium range. It'll beat out an AN-94 most of the time, and in close range, it can beat out the majority of assault rifles, save for the FAMAS and the AEK. And what it has to make up for that is no negatives. It has nothing wrong with it. I mean, if you look at the spread, it goes where you shoot it most of the time. In fact, the suppression against it used to be glitched. You used to have less suppression than you needed. So when people were suppressing you, which you can agree with that or against that, it really didn't affect you as much. Now, this was a bug. This wasn't intentional, and they fixed it. But it was another reason to use the M16 rather legitimate or not, if you think of it. That was another bonus. Another thing about the M16 is, you know, its ease of use. I mean, someone can use this as soon as they get the game, and because of that, you can get used to this from an early level. Well, this is not definitely a plus in the sense of ease of use, but when you can get used to a weapon from the first time you install a game, you can only use it as US, but that is still, you start out with it. Why is the starting weapon so dynamic, but so good at all the dynamic things that it's good at? I agree that there needs to be a gun that the game has to be balanced around. That is the M16. The M16 is the gun that DICE looks at and says, wow, let's balance all these other guns around it. But when it comes to it, when it's good at everything, maybe, like I said, not necessarily as good at everything as some of the other guns, because it can be beat in a couple of things, but it'll outweigh those guns because in the other situations that say the AEK doesn't shoot at long range well, the M16 does. And so what it creates is you're good at every situation. You're not mediocre at every situation. That is what a gun that is dynamic needs to be. It needs to be okay at everything, not really good at everything. Okay, when you can use, say on Metro, the M16 or the AEK, but then on, let's say, Airplane Squad Rush on Caspian, and you can use the M16 as well as the AN-94, because they will perform almost equally, and that's in two dynamic ranges. There's a lack of balance. Okay, another thing about the M16 is that when using it, and I've kind of touched on this a little bit, but it has next to no recoil. Okay, there's guns in the class that have a much higher recoil, which I don't understand. Let's take a look at this. I mean, the M16 has severe, negligible recoil. When I shoot at this, look, it doesn't even move hardly. Now, if I'm shooting the AEK, it'll bounce a little bit, especially if I'm using a sight. Okay, when I'm using the AEK, I use the irons to kind of counter the high recoil, because I think that the irons kind of reduce it. Let's take a look at the M416. That is a gun that is balanced. I think that the M416, because of its lower fire rate, and a couple of other factors that just make it inferior to the M16, I think the M416 is what the M16 should be, and that the M416 should have a couple of tweaks really to it. And my suggestion for really kind of balancing out the M16, there's two main things I would see to it that would maybe cause a little more variety of guns being used. The first thing that needs to happen to the M16 is its reload speed needs to be increased. I think that its when empty reload speed, like you just mag dumped, should be the same, or maybe a couple of maybe 0.2 of a second longer than an AEK reload, that standard reload. And the second thing that needs to happen is that the M16 needs to have higher spread while moving. I think that would balance it out, because this is one of the better weapons as an assault player to strafe with and shoot. And I think that if you kind of reduce some of the mobility that comes with the M16, maybe people would think about it a little bit more. Maybe if you could strafe with the AEK a little bit better, it would be better on some of the smaller maps, because maneuverability on small maps is key. Or maybe when at long ranges, you can kind of maybe sway a little bit side to side. Maybe someone would want to use, I don't know, the M416, which has a lower initial shot recoil instead. It's all these kind of things that you have to take into account. While the M16 is not overpowered because of how good it is overpowered because of how it can dominate at any range and has no negatives. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and please remember to like.